Hi, and welcome to the Sam Sorbo Show. I have a story that you are not going to believe, but you have to believe it because we are at war. And it's a war on innocence, as the title of this article in City Journal brings up, that I want to talk to you about. Before I do, I have some exciting news. I've got a homeschooling seminar conference scheduled now for June 24th and 25th. Check samsorbo.com for more information, and also join the community there. If you just look on samsorbo.com and look under my portfolio, you'll find the Underground Education Community, which is a nonprofit that I've set up, and also just an online community for people to exchange information and talk about the education of their children. You've heard me talk about how our education, quote unquote, education system does not actually engage in education. And so that really leaves parents high and dry, because they've been raised with the idea that if they just turn their children over to the system will take care of educating them. Yeah, maybe imperfectly, but at least they think that there's some value in it. And I'm now saying it's not that there's no value in it, it's that there's a negative value in what they do to children in our education system. And the proof of it is what we see every day in the culture, frankly. If you think that the perversion of children happens somehow just via the media and Hollywood, or via some one individual perhaps who takes advantage of a young child or something like that, you're sorely mistaken. It's systemic in the sense that it comes at them from all angles. And those angles actually at times conspire against young children. And so, according to this article in City Journal, which is by Christopher Rufo, who I'm a big fan of his, the article is called "The War on Innocence," and it talks about a Kentucky summer camp. It's a summer camp in Kentucky. What could possibly go wrong? It's just a summer camp for kids that teaches sex liberation, BDSM, and self-pleasure for minors. So he starts the article by talking about the social order. He says the principles of queer theory have escaped from the college campus, and they've made their way into a summer camp for children in rural Kentucky. Last year, this is a nonprofit coalition that calls itself Sexy Sex Ed. It organized a series of, quote, sexy summer camp events that target minors, including lessons on sex liberation, gender exploration, BDSM, which is bondage, dominance, and sadomasochism, just to be clear, also being a sex worker, self-managed abortions, and sexual activity while using illicit and licit drugs. How to do your drugs and have sex. It's the brainchild of someone named Tanya Turner, who is otherwise, she calls herself this, a femme, fat, queer, magical pleasure worker. This is who you want teaching your children, your young children. She says she was raised by a host of witchy women in a coven-like mountain matriarchy. They used crystals and sex toys and tarot in her teaching, tarot cards. So she founded this Sexy Sex Ed program in 2012. She's run dozens of events all across the Appalachian region, and she recruits for the LGBTQ among youth. She works with a number of regional philanthropies, including the Foundation for Appalachian Kentucky And by the way, there's another story that I want to get into that deals with the repercussions of this kind of thing. Because this isn't just a one-stop shop. This is the formation of something that's greater. This is feeding a larger beast, if you will. Sexy Summer Camp is to teach teenagers and people of all ages to openly discuss personal and political consent. I know personal consent, what is political consent? Sexual safety and anatomy. That's how they build themselves. It sounds fairly somewhat innocuous, except that it's called Sexy Summer Camp. So already I'm like on edge. They're euphemisms, obviously, that obscure what the actual mission of the camp is, what the actual mission of the founder is. And it's, I got to get that book out again. There's a book written by Tammy Bruce called The Death of Right and Wrong. And in the introduction, I think, or the foreword that she wrote, she tells her story. She was seduced as a young woman by another woman. She was targeted. She was, I believe she was still underage, although I don't recall exactly. And she didn't believe that she was being abused at the time. And then, as you probably remember, Tammy Bruce rose through the ranks at National Organization for Women. And she became the head of the chapter for California, which is a very high degree, a high level. And over time, she realized that the mission was not to free people from their struggles. It was to join people into the struggle. It was to convert people into the brokenness, but not heal the brokenness. And she goes into that in the foreword or the introduction to her book. And I'll tell you, when I read it years ago, it was life-changing. I have not forgotten it. I tell her, when I see her, I always manage to tell her about it again. It's changed my life. And this, of course, this is one of the struggles, is typically anything that has a cause that it seeks to resolve has a limited interest in actually resolving the issue, because once the issue is resolved, it loses its reason for being. This is a struggle that we have to recognize. There's a conflict of interest in any organization that seeks to resolve an issue. There's a conflict of interest in resolving that same issue. So to continue with this story in City Journal, The War on Innocence, we're talking about the mission of these sexy summer camps, sexy sex ed camps, I should say. And the author, Christopher Rufo, did some research and looked at what was publicly available on the organization's calendar. And he said that it reads like the syllabus from a radical queer theory seminar. So the sessions that they're offering young people at a Kentucky camp, summer camp, included Sex with Me Pleasure Workshop, Sex with Me Self-Pleasure Workshop, Gender Diversity, Let's Talk About Sex, Sexy Trans Sex Ed, the 3 Ps, Pee, Poop, and Pleasure, Sex on Drugs, and Eugenics in Appalachia. I don't know, are there adequate words for this? He mentions that, of course, in liberal colleges, sadly, we've come to expect this kind of thing. We've seen it enough. We know that that is going on college campuses. In fact, that's why many of us are hesitant about sending our children to a college campus, any college campus, frankly. But this is a program that's recruiting children as young as age 13. They want to discuss with these children, these young children, graphic sexual practices with instructors and adults, co-participants in their 30s and 40s. This is underage, non-consensual sex acts. Like, this used to be just patently against the law. There was no discussion about this. But when they term it education, somehow it just sort of gets a pass. I don't think so. It's child abuse. The camp organizers have admitted that they target vulnerable youth, including foster children, who already are at high risk of sexual abuse. And in a video, the founder said, quote, "Masturbation is really healthy and I recommend it to people of all ages. As soon as my nephews could talk, they were doing that. As soon as they could talk, she was encouraging them." The world's gone insane. CNN has reported that sexy sex ed is, quote, "what women in Appalachian Kentucky really want." They framed the summer camp as a way to, quote, "bring honest conversations to young people to fill the void left behind by homes and schools." Why is that void even a thing? I'll tell you why. It's because we ceded the ground, we relinquished the ground, the territory, by dropping our kids off at school, then being convinced that the school was a proper area for the discussion of sexual issues, called sex ed. Oh, it's for their safety. They have to be told this, because what if they don't learn it elsewhere, right? And then the schools turned it over. It's all part of the, quote, "comprehensive sex education." And if you think your children aren't getting that in school, then I don't know what. Then I can't tell you anything. This is the culture today. And the culture is geared against the innocence of children. It seeks to rob children of their childhoods and their innocence. And, well, I suppose there'll be more on that later, because this is an ongoing thing. I've got a couple more stories for you as well, so stay tuned if you're listening on radio, on YouTube and Rumble, and also go check out locals.com, locals.com/sorbos, sorbos.locals.com, because I do post extra videos over there if you subscribe to our community there. Thanks so much for listening. This is the Sam Sorbo Show.